All right, we are live with another episode of the Blue Crocus Experience. And I'm joined today by Ronnie Knuckles, someone that I've gotten to know through the junk removal community, through the SEO and website community. And I'm really excited to have this chat. We've talked back and forth a lot over Messenger. We refer clients back and forth to each other, and just an all-around good dude. So Ronnie, welcome to the show.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, super exciting to have it. I know a lot of people. I'm going to share this out once you start talking to a few of the junk groups, but I know that a lot of people know you in there. But just for those that don't know, give us an update on who you are, where you are, what you're up to, and maybe. I mean, I'll dive into the list of all the things that you are up to all the time, but give people an idea of what's on your plate.
Yeah, man. So as you all can see, my name is Ronnie. I'm here in Kentucky, actually. So I started my junk removal business about 5 years ago, and I had been working with a marketing company for about 2 of those 5 years, and really wasn't getting a ton of results. And anyway, so I started doing that kind of on my own, and got plugged into some training, and partnered with some other folks, and launched my own digital marketing agency once I began to see that what I was doing was working in my own business. And so, today Sergeant Junket is ranking extremely high organically in our market. And we've got junk removal clients all over the United States. We're primarily in the East Coast now. We're trying to get further west. I think it's my Appalachian accent or whatever it is that doesn't allow me to get there, but we're working through that. So
Google Translate to the rescue.
Yeah, that's right. If I could just, get it right, would be good. But anyway, so that's where I'm at now. I'm very heavily engaged in the digital marketing side, and I also serve as a board member for Veterans Club Inc. So we started in Kentucky, and now we've started to kind of see some partnerships with national organizations and things. And so over the next few years, we're going to look at kind of scaling that out on a national scale. So I serve as the sergeant at arms on the board with them, and I've got 3 kids and a wife, and I also work full time.
Yep.
As an
I told you it was a long list, guys.
Dude, it's such a long list. But again, I'm blessed in that I'm an engineering manager for a pharmaceutical distribution company, and so I never thought of myself as having like the office type job, but I do, and so it allows me to manage, especially the digital marketing side, from my day job, and then kind of plug in there when I need to, and kind of manage my team of engineers. So anyway, I'm blessed in a lot of ways in that regard. And so, yeah, that's the full list. And each one of those things takes a slice of my life. But
for sure.
Yeah,
because we were catching up, kind of before we started the show, and I was asking you those questions, like how do you manage it all? So one of the things I do want to talk about is, kind of discipline. Obviously you've got the military background. Really appreciate your service as well.
thank you.
But let's talk a little bit about that. Because you've got business, the junk removal business, the website and SEO business. You're working, full time, and you're involved in Veterans Club. And you've got the family. So there's 5 things, major things. And then you've got to sleep somewhere in there and eat and shower and poop, right? So how do you manage all that? Like, how do you slice your time up? Because I know that, you love your kids, you love your family. I know you're not the type of person to just phone it in at work. So where does that all come together for you?
Yeah, so first thing I try to do is set the priority. Which of these things are on my priority list. Obviously, my family is my first. The one thing I'm not willing to sacrifice is time with them, and so I try to protect that time as best I can. So we have the evenings. Anytime after 6 p.m. until the kids are in bed. That's isolated time. I may take a call if it's an emergency, but outside of that, that's our time. So that's kind of the first step in the discipline, because if I don't have that time to disconnect from the world and pour into them, then everything else kind of falls apart. So that's priority number 1. And then, my digital marketing agency is really priority number 2. And so I have to spend sometimes very late evenings working through that. My wife gets up at 4 a.m. and goes to the gym every day, so she's got to go to bed no later than 10 usually. So that gives me a little bit of free time to Well, not free time, but it gives me some time, until about 1 a.m. or so to get work done. And then in my day job, a lot of that is I built my team, right? So I've got a really good team of engineers, and they're the guys with most of the brains. And so they know what to do. And so for me, it's more culture building, making sure that our metrics and everything look right. But I don't have to worry too much about that because I've got a really good, productive team. I've got a supervisor that leads that team who kind of reports to me. And so that is like the easiest part of my life is my day job, which is weird, but it is.
Yeah.
And so on the junk removal side, we've been around long enough to where we've got a manager that kind of runs the day-to-day on the operational side. And then my dad actually retired. And so I'm able to have him answering the phones and kind of, every now and then I'll answer the phones if he needs a day or whatever, but he's kind of managing all that. And I don't touch the junk removal business maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks. I'll meet with the team and we really talk vision, kind of what our plans are, where we're at, that sort of thing.
So aside from tweaking all the SEO on the back end, you're pretty much out of the field.
Correct. So I run the digital marketing for my company almost as I would for a client, right? I mean, I'm a little bit more engaged because it's my company, but it's same concept. Anything that I would do for a client, we do for Sergeant Junket. Outside of the organic stuff, obviously, like with Sergeant Junket, I'm ordering flyers and ordering yard signs and doing all those things that I wouldn't do for a client. But yeah, so at Veterans Club, man, it kind of fits in. So it's very family oriented. So, we have a lot of veterans. We want their families to be plugged in. So there's a lot of kids that are my kids' age, from different families. And, the motto of the club is doing life together. Mm-hmm. And so everybody kind of really takes that to heart. And so we take our kids with us to a lot of events, and most of the time when we're meeting, we'll meet after my normal working hours. And I can actually do my digital marketing stuff. I'm actually at the club right now. I can do a lot of my digital marketing stuff here, and so it makes life, it kind of fits into all of the chaos.
There's some overlap. Yeah, I appreciate you breaking that down because I mean, you're still working from 10 to 1. You're putting in the hours and then making it all happen. What was the timeline with your current job and starting the junk company? Because that's an interesting phase for everyone starting any business. Were you working, like, have you been working at this job for forever and just kind of started this up on the side, or how did that go for you?
Yeah, so actually, that's a longer story, but I actually got out of the Marine Corps, went to vocational school and business school and got a couple, I got my bachelor's degree and all that sort of stuff. I actually found myself in industrial maintenance work as a technician and kind of worked my way up to a supervisory role. And then I got on with one of the bigger distribution brands, mechanical distribution brands in the US. And I was doing that and I'm like, man, I'm good at it, but I don't want to work for somebody my whole life. I feel like I've got the skills and kind of the background to build my own thing. And my cousin was actually a franchisee for one of the bigger veteran-owned junk removal franchises.
Yep.
I won't name drop them here. And they have a really solid brand and all that. And anyway, he and I were kind of talking about, me starting a business, and he was like, man, you should do junk removal. Well, that same week, my mom had called the biggest junk removal franchise in the world to come and remove some junk from her backyard. And so I said, how much did they charge you for that? And she told me some ungodly rate. And I was like, oh, I could do that. Like, no big deal. I could do that.
So this is 17, 18, right?
This is in 2000 and this is early 2018.
Okay. Yeah.
So I started, analyzing and digging into the market and, getting into all this. So I spent almost a whole year doing all that. And then finally I'm like, okay, I'm getting into paralysis analysis. And, I'm just going to do it. And so he was trying to get me to buy a franchise. I decided, not that this is always the right decision, but I decided to do it on my own. And, Sergeant Junket was born at about 4 a.m. late November in 18 while I was a maintenance supervisor. And so from there it was, I would have to get up at about 4 a.m. to make it to the dump. to dump the entire box truck by myself at 4 a.m.
Yep.
and then I would work from about 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. throughout the week, and then all day on Saturdays.
Doing the job outside of your day job.
Correct. Yeah. I did that for about 6 months until that was just physically, junk removal's physical, man. So a lot of what we do is mentally exhausting, but when you add in the physical stuff, it's a whole nother layer. And so I ended up hiring my first person about 6 months in, and then I was on and off the trucks for about 2 years, on the weekends and nights to help the teams. And then after about 2 years, I got pretty much completely off the trucks, minus big projects, that sort of thing. It was difficult. I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning, taking out debt to run ads and just being ridiculously dumb and not looking for a coach. And so I learned a lot of lessons there now that allow me to kind of, when I have a junk removal client specifically, share some knowledge like, hey, dude, you're going to be slow, okay, because you're brand new. Don't go take out debt to run Google ads. Don't do that. Like build up to that, that sort of thing. So,
yeah. That's crazy. That's crazy. And then your dad comes on and you have people now and it all kind of runs. What was that transition like? Was that a hard transition for you to make? It sounds like you've got, some innate leadership abilities, at the day job. But a lot of people find it really, really hard to get off the truck. How was that for you?
It was extremely difficult. This goes back to, again, I've been kind of blessed in my professional career because I was able to do all of this and not take money from Sergeant Junket. Some guys can't do that, because they've got to make a living, and they make their living off of doing the junk removal full time.
Yeah.
And so I can speak to what it looks like working full time. I don't necessarily know if I could speak to, junk removal is my full time thing. So, but it really what it took was finding team members that I could keep around for at least 6 months to a year. And in today's market, it's all across the United States. We know it's difficult to do that. And so I really took the third year and focused on how do I build a culture that people want to stick around. I can get to work. I mean, and you're going to have your slow, like, right now it's technically slow season. But if I have a great culture, we'll figure out a way to get through that. And so we got that taken care of. I ended up hiring some really good team members. They've been around, both of them have now been around for over a year.
Nice.
So they're my longest tenured guys and all, since we've started. And so that allowed me to look at, okay, how am I going to manage this? And then my dad ended up, getting cancer actually, and couldn't go back to work. He's fully recovered from that, but he was looking for something to do. And he's an old school Southern guy, but people like him, and he's really friendly on the phone, and he can connect to clients in a way that even I can't. And so, anyway, he's been really good at helping me kind of manage that piece.
That's amazing. Yeah, props to you for kind of getting both of those running. Sean Day popped in a bit ago, and he focuses a lot on hiring for blue collar companies. So he appreciate you jumping in here, Sean. Not sure if you're still watching, but he can speak a lot to the hiring side too, and it's culture's important. What are you doing to create that culture? You mentioned you did it, but that's something that a lot of people are like, okay, cool. What's the next step? And obviously it's different for everybody, but what are some things that you've done?
Yeah, I mean, so the first thing, which is silly, okay, but I think it makes the most sense, is to, one, you have to live it yourself. So you have to set the standard in yourself. If you're going to tell somebody you want them to do something, you want this company to be something, and you aren't willing to live that out, then it's going to fail. It took me a while, really. I mean, that's one of the hardest pieces. So I would say start there. Make sure that whatever you're going to.
What does that mean? Like, what does that mean in practice for you? Like living out what you want the company to be.
So if I'm gonna set a standard, for example, say if I'm gonna say, hey, I need you guys to fill out these truck checklists, these job checklists on every single job, right? Every job, the expectation is that you do this, and here's the why behind that, to make sure that our trucks are taken care of, that our customers are taken care of, that we remember to ask for a review, to kind of build that value on Google. And so if I'm going to ask them to do that, but I'm not taking the due diligence on the background to check those and to hold them accountable to that, they're going to say, it doesn't really matter to him. Why should it matter to me? And then they're going to stop doing that.
Yeah.
That's one example. Or if I say, hey, you need to wear a uniform shirt. I want everybody to wear a uniform shirt. I'll provide the shirts. You got to wear them. If they get ripped, tell me. We'll get you a new one, right? That sort of thing. I ask them to do that. I kind of make that an expectation. And then when I see them not wearing a uniform shirt coming off the job, I don't say anything. I'm passive about it. Well, it didn't really matter to him. It doesn't matter to me, right? So setting the expectation, and then you don't have to be an asshole, but hold people accountable to that, right? Making sure that they understand that it does matter to you and that you're following up and pushing the team forward to meet your expectations. I mean, that's kind of what it means to me. And that's the start of really building a culture. I think making sure that you communicate very well. Like, here are our goals, right? This is our vision. This is where we want to take this company. I mean, we're a small brand, right? I mean, if we were a massive corporation, you expect kind of the team leads and supervisors to do that sort of thing. But in our world, we have to be an open book, really. We don't have to tell them the back end financials, but we need them to know, like, this is where we're at. This is where our goals are, and have continuous meetings, once a week, twice a month, something like that, so that they kind of all can stay aligned and know where we're at and what the goals are. And since we've begun to do that, culturally, things have changed, right? If we're slow and we don't have a lot of jobs, and that happens, right? These guys are like, hey, what can we do to go drive business? They go to pizza shops and all these restaurants and hand out flyers and coffee shops, everything. They're doing that on their own to drive in more business, because they understand that as the business, right, I'm going to get a good paycheck if I do this. And as the business progresses, I've been here the longest, right? I'm going to have seniority. I'm going to be the guy for the team lead position or the supervisor position. And so you set that expectation and tell them, hey, this is my goal. Now, if you don't want to be a leader, you don't have to be. Okay, you can be a helper for the rest of your days if you're a good helper. I don't want that for you, though. I want to set you up for success, and here's how you're going to do it. And so, anyway, since we've made that shift, man, it's been we've seen a real change in our business.
When did you make that
decision? It's been about a year and a half, 2 years since it's been effective, because I started to realize, like, okay, I'm not doing my due diligence and going and checking these things or holding them accountable. Like I was making the ask, over 2 years ago, but not really being effective in following up and making sure they knew it was a priority, right? And so now we've got like a crew lead he's bought in and engaged, and he's doing that. And then I've got my dad kind of also coming in and checking on them and making sure everything's good. And then again, I still come in every so often, and we talk through, like, here's the vision, here's where we're at, and it's made life easier now, but it was a struggle for a while.
Yeah, for sure. What kind of there's a couple things. You mentioned the checklist. I'm developing the checklist prone side of me. I'm very much like, hey, I'll do things once, and then I won't create a process that can be repeatable, right? So that's something that we've really been working on. Were you always like that? Was that a military thing? Like, where did that come about? And then I'd also like to talk, what's on your checklist? Like, what is it that you ensure gets done every job, every time, related to the truck, to the reviews, to the customer? How do you do that?
Yeah, so it wasn't always who I am as a business owner. So, like, in the Marine Corps, especially, everything is regimented. Like, if we have PM documents on trucks and on our radio equipment and all that. It's like everything is but it's almost so much so that people pencil with it, right? Because they're just like, whatever, I've seen this truck 4 times this week, it's whatever. And so when I got out and started running my own business, I really didn't even think about that aspect, especially early on, because, like, you're grinding, like, you're just trying to get the business.
Making it
you're
happen.
not really, you're not really thinking about, especially when I get team members, how do I make sure that we continue to hit these marks when I'm not the guy on the truck every day? So can I name drop on here?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sure you may have seen Cade Swallow. He's a junk removal guy. He owns
Yeah, Cade's awesome.
Yeah, so Cade begins to share with me the Firepreneurs podcast, with Fire Dogs and that. And so, I begin to listen to that and start to listen to he starts talking to the checklist. And now at this point, we had already had like a PM checklist that we used that we kind of just something generic. We generated off of Google. And then, but we didn't have our guys going through like a job checklist. And so I began to listen to this podcast. And I'm like, wow, this is so easy. It's so easy. It's like everyone should know it, but we don't. And so I took some ideas from that, kind of plugged in some of my own ideas. And this kind of goes back to, this was kind of during the building the culture and accountability phase. It was like perfect timing because those episodes began to come out at that time. And so our PM checklist is relatively simple, like check the oil, check the tires, check the coolant, make sure there's no cracked mirrors, those types of things.
PM being like PM in the day or project management or like just, I'm not familiar with the term.
Sorry, I'm an acronym fool. Preventative maintenance. Okay.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. And so we just do one every morning for whichever truck that you're going to take for that day. Before you leave our lot, you have to PM that truck. And we've got 2 clipboards, one for PMs and one for job checklist, right? And so anyway, they do the PM checklist. If there's any issues, they have to write it out. And then we've got some files in our office where they just drop it in there. And then, my dad or Mike, the supervisor, will go and pull those, order the parts, or go to AutoZone or do whatever we got to do to get it fixed. So that's kind of the job or the vehicle preventative maintenance checklist. For the job checklists, there's a lot really, but the key components are like who's on the truck, what's the address of the job. I know all of it. We've got a CRM software. I can pull all of this data, but I want them to take a minute to like calm them down, like fill this information out properly. What's the name? What's the customer's name? What time of day did you arrive at the job? Fill that out, go do the job. You already know, and we had some trainings on these too. You know the things you need to do on the job. Make sure you sweep up when you're done. Ask for a review. Then you're going to go hand out door hangers, 5 left, 5 right, 5 across the street. Did you do that? And they've got to check these things off in the truck before they leave. And there have been times where they're like, man, I'm glad I had that job checklist because we were in a hurry to get to the next job and I forgot to ask for a review. And it's like, okay. So we've also incentivized asking for reviews. So we've got if you get 50 reviews within 6 months, so we're not being crazy, but if you get 60 reviews yourself within 6 months, we're going to give you a $500 bonus, right? And so we've started to see, we weren't real crazy about reviews until very recently. I think about 90 days ago, we were around 95 reviews. Now we're at 130. And so 95 reviews over the course of 4 years. Now we're at 131, actually, as of last night. I checked it before I came on this podcast. Anyway, within 90 days. And so the guys are getting that. They're starting to understand what we're trying to do. And we're making them fill out the checklist, right? And so we can hold them accountable to it. And anyway, so that's kind of the meat and potatoes of what those two look like. So
that's cool. Yeah, I appreciate you laying that out. I'm sure there's someone who there's gonna be a light bulb. They're like, man, this thing I've been struggling with. I can't get the guys to do it. And I think I read something in a group that I'm in, and a guy was posting about. I don't remember exactly what it was that he was posting about, but he basically said your team's commitment to the job or their sticking to the processes is a direct reflection of how well you do it. And that hit me, right? Because I haven't been, by nature, I'm very much like, all right, let's get in, let's save the day, let's put out the fire, and then we'll go on to the next one, right? And so I'm really in the process of stepping back, looking at working on the business, and putting in systems. So it's speaking to me, but that like hit me when he said that. And I was like, this is something that can be applied to any business because we as owners, we hold everyone to an accountability. Yes, we're invested in it, but if we're not doing it, to that level, then there's no reason that our employees are going to do it either.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. It's the old cliche, like actions speak louder than words, right? And they do. I mean, they do. I can tell my guys to do something until I'm blue in the face, but until I'm willing to make sure they understand that it's a priority, they're not going to. They might do it for a time, right? They might do it for 2 weeks. But if I'm not continuously saying, hey, why isn't this filled out? You got to fill this out. And holding them accountable to it, they're not going to take it seriously. So
Yeah, I love it. Let's switch tacks a little bit to, ways that you market. Obviously, SEO websites. That's both of our jam. And by the way, guys, for those that are watching live or watching this after, Ronnie and I are competitors. I'm putting my hands up in quotes here, but this is what I made the post. I don't know, a month or so ago, saying, "Hey, I'm going to ruffle some feathers, but if you're not talking to your competitors, you got to be right." Ronnie and I bounce ideas off each other, and there's value in this. So, talk to your competitors. Talk to. I know you got a cool story on this, which we'll get into. But there might be a job like for Ronnie and I, but it's the same thing with you in your local business area, right? There might be a job that Ronnie can't serve, or one that's out of his scope, or same with me, or I already have a client in that area. Same thing with your local junk removal business. Your competitors may be further ahead. They've got bigger crews. They want to keep busy on bigger jobs, and they need someone, that can take the smaller jobs. Or maybe they have a truck down or two trucks down, and they've got a bunch of clients on the schedule, and if they can't serve those clients, it looks bad for them. So having someone to be able to come in and pick up the slack is huge, right? And that's a couple reasons why. But tell us your story of your local competitor, and then I'll get into some other local marketing stuff outside of the website.
yeah, so I think he's in some of these groups, so he may end up seeing this, so he'll probably get a chuckle out of this too. So, yeah, we had a competitor, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, year and a half ago, something like that, during COVID timeframe, right when COVID was at its height. And so this kind of goes into when I had fired my marketing company. I found out that they were working with this guy in the same market as me, and so obviously to me that's a conflict of interest. And so we just kind of cut them off. Well, he didn't know that they were working with
The other fellow.
with me. Right. The other competitor. And he didn't know that. He ended up calling me and kind of apologizing or whatever. So fast forward about 90 days or so, I hadn't really talked to him. And he was using my name and another company's name in his URL, another local competitor. Well, that's no bueno, right? Yeah. So the other competitor actually added him on Facebook. We were already friends, me and the other. I know this is getting confusing. We'll call the other competitor Jay, right? Just to make things easy. Jay and I were already friends. We had been in the market for a while. We shared work, back and forth. And so Jay added this other competitor on Facebook and blasted him publicly on Facebook. Like, if you need to learn how to run ads, you can call me or Ronnie. And I'm like, dude, okay. So I removed the tag. It got pretty nasty for a while. I was pretty heated, and in my own stupidity, went at this guy, and I took about 100 yard signs and blasted his whole neighborhood, right? Just because I was being an idiot. So he did the same thing, right? He took about 50 yard signs or 100 yard signs and blasted my whole neighborhood. And I'm like, okay, this is dumb. So time went on, and finally I was like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Like our market's big, we got about 1.4 million people. I know it's not like New York City, but still it's a big market, and there's a ton of companies here. And so I ended up calling him, and I'm like, hey man, I think there was some misunderstandings. So he didn't know that his marketing company, my former marketing company, had begun to target us directly because they were mad that we had fired him, right? He didn't know that. So when he got called out publicly, it was one of those, it was a shock to him, really.
Kind of a gut punch.
Yeah. Well, so he ended up firing them too. Anyway, long story short, he and I made amends. I'm like, look, man, I understand now. Now that I'm in digital marketing, I understand what was going on. I have a much clearer picture of what was happening. And so sorry that I blasted your neighborhood. That was stupid. I should have just called you, and we should have taken care of it. And we met, had coffee, and now actually we talk probably 2 or 3 times a week. We're trying to come up with a strategy to, and you see this in the groups 1,000 times a week probably, but where guys are like, oh, these cheap guys in our market, like they're killing us. I can't do this and whatever. You can still get it done. You got to create value. A lot of what we're doing is figuring out how do we come up with a strategy to where these guys that don't really know what they're doing or aren't charging properly don't matter, right? Because we're bringing so much value together as two companies competitors, but coming kind of as a united front. It's like, hey, pick between one of the two of us. We're your two best options, right? And so we've been kind of strategizing how we're going to work through that and get that done. So work with your competitors. We could have been doing this 2 years ago. And for our own selfishness and ego and whatever, we didn't come together and make it happen. So you're absolutely right. I mean,
how public are you about the combined efforts with this other fellow?
I mean, the day that we met and made amends, we took a picture and put it on Facebook and tagged each other in it and let everyone know. So
the reason I asked is if you come together as a united front, there's something that happens for people who are looking. They're like, wait a minute, aren't those guys supposed to be competitors? And it speaks to both of your characters. So customers looking, automatically you've leveled yourself up from the competition, right? I put it in quotes again because we're all playing our own race. Yes, there's you want to be aware of the people in your market, but by putting yourselves uniting as a unit while being separate companies, people can see that, and it speaks to your character as business owners, and people can relate and are drawn to that.
Yeah, man. And I think, it also is one of those things where not every customer is going to be your customer. They're not going to relate to you the same way that maybe they relate to him, or same for you and I even. There are some customers that may relate to me better and some that you're going to be a better fit for. And it's okay for, some guys just can't handle that. They can't set their ego aside and go, maybe I'm not the best fit for this customer. So you really have to ask yourself, and this is something that I had to do you really want what's best for your customers? Because if you do, you will succeed, and you don't have to be a total asshole in doing so. And so that's what I've tried to remind myself, like in both of my businesses. At the end of the day, I want what's best for anyone that I interact with. And so if that means working with Lewis, or maybe this guy, he's going to be a better fit for my other junk removal competitor, I'm okay with that. Right? As long as me and the competitor have a good mutual relationship and reciprocate that between each other. And we do now. And so, we're aligning. Our prices are very similar. The value we offer is very similar. And so at the end of the day, we want it to be on the client. Pick who you think is going to be the best fit for you. Yep. You're going to get the same value no matter who you go with. And that's been a game changer for us, really.
I love it. I think that's huge. And so I think I like what you said, set the ego aside. I think there's also, the idea of like there's the rising tide lifts all boats. There is more work than you could ever handle, right?
Exactly.
You talk about your market. If there are 5 junk removal companies in a market, there's enough work for 5 junk removal companies. You're all still in business, right? So why not, play between each other and play the odds in your favor, right? Two businesses working together, is a lot better than, kind of isolating yourself in a corner. So I love that.
Sure.
What are some strategies that you guys use outside of the web, side of things, outside of your website SEO, to connect with clients, to, jump into your community? Because that's the stuff that fascinates and honestly gets me fired up. I love the website and SEO stuff because, you've got 24/7 salespeople, but there's so much fun stuff you can do outside of that. What are some things that you guys have done?
So I will start with saying that junk removal has opened so many doors in my life through being able to do good things in the community that I wouldn't have been able to do, say, if I just had a digital marketing agency, right? Because I've got equipment, I've got more, people and things that I can do in junk removal. So from a marketing perspective, we'll start there. We do yard signs, we do flyers, door hangers are part of the job checklist, that we have. That's a requirement. I believe in doing organic marketing is just as important as digital marketing. So we're very heavy into that. So at all times, any kind of slow patch we have, that's marketing time. We're not going to sit around. We're not going to not do anything. If I've got to get out there myself and do it, we get it done. So, I mentioned it, but door hangers, flyers, yard signs, those are kind of the big 3. We also we'll print out letters and mail them ourselves to property management groups. We try to find some commercial property management groups, those types. Actually, we've got some huge jobs on those, and we're returning clients. So those types of organic things we do heavily. From a community side, so this kind of goes back into Veterans Club. So I'm trying to think of the year, 2020, might have been 2020, Hurricane Laura hit Louisiana. And so I hadn't been in business for a full 2 years, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but I knew I've got 2 trucks, I've got 4 workers, and I want to send supplies down, right? I mean, it's about a 9-hour drive. So I mean, it's a good little grip. And so I started calling around to find some people that wanted to go. I put a post in a Veterans Club group, and like 15 veterans volunteered. And I'm like, okay. Well, then the CEO of Veterans Club and I had a phone call. Veterans Club actually gave us money to get an RV to house these guys. We partnered with a local moving company who had some 26-foot box trucks. We packed these things full, and the news was all over it, right? I mean, there was 4 different news crews filming everything, and that wasn't our goal. Our goal was just do the right thing, but the community got to see us do the right thing.
Yeah,
we made a partnership in Veterans Club where we have an outlet that we can give back to, right? And we'll talk more about that in a minute. So we deliver the supplies. It was a total disaster. I got in a fight with the governor of Louisiana over COVID protocols. His chief of staff called me at 10 o'clock at night because the news story asked me a bunch of, it's a long, whole big story. So
it was good press or
no, I stopped taking press calls for about a week because I'm like, I don't have time to be out here fighting over COVID protocols with the governor's office in Louisiana. I'm not even from Louisiana. I don't really care that much. We wanted to help the people that needed the help. That was our goal. And it got kind of muddied water once we got down there. We got them the things they needed. We're talking about 2 26-foot box trucks, a dump truck full of water, and a 16-foot box truck completely. I mean, we were overweight for sure. We packed this whole gym out. And so then once we came back, the relationship with Veterans Club began to flourish. People would donate.
Is that your start with Veterans Club? That's cool.
It is. Yeah. And so I had no really affiliate other than I'm a veteran, and I had no real affiliation with the club at that point. We were just friends, I guess you would say. But they would have homeless donations, right? People would donate clothes or food items, and they couldn't get it because it was big pallets of whatever. Well, they would call us, hey, could you guys go pick this up? When we were slow, we'd go pick it up for them, just doing the right thing. And then we had a really bad tornado event in the following year here in Kentucky, where we had this tornado that it destroyed Mayfield, Kentucky. I mean, the tornado went through the downtown, killed close to 100 people. It was really bad.
Wow.
So we partnered again. And this time we had a semi truck, 40-foot flatbed. It was much bigger this time because we kind of knew what we were doing, right? And so we delivered the supplies. Then we went back down again and used kind of our junk removal background and we're cleaning up properties. There was a church that had been destroyed. Insurance wouldn't cover it. We got it all cleaned out with the help of the Amish community, actually, and got that completely cleared out for them. And so I say all of that to say Sergeant Junket, not because we were trying to get the news involved, but we were all over the news for 2 solid months. One-on-one interviews with myself, my trucks. And so that really helped people in our community go, this is a company I want to work with, right? And it was kind of a brand awareness thing because obviously you're seeing our trucks on the news, but it's like, these guys are going to do the right things with the money that I pay them.
Yeah.
We didn't make any money on any of that. We lost our ass when we went to Louisiana,
yeah.
But it didn't really matter because we were doing it for the right reasons. And so my advice would be, find something that you can do for the right reason that you feel right, and use your company for good. If you don't, you're missing out on a major opportunity for your soul, your own self.
Yeah.
Major opportunity. And so, anyway, that's a major recommendation of mine. A lot of guys don't do that, or they're not even really sure where to start. You don't have to have a natural disaster. Link up with some local charity and say, hey, do you guys ever need anything picked up and you can't get it picked up? We're slow sometimes. We'll come pick that up for you. And just start to build those relationships.
Those are key. Yeah, we did that with the community kitchen and the Restore here locally. So the Restore calls fairly often. They need stuff cleaned out and they'll even pay for it. But
Yeah,
then
that's awesome.
community kitchen, we did the same. We actually took it. Really wanted to get some SEO as we were first getting going, right? So we did an article for them and said, hey, can you post this on your website? And they did, right? So we did the article on, hey, if you're looking to donate stuff, this is what you can do. And if it's too big, give us a call at Integrity Junk, right? So that was a way that we got a backlink. But it also opened doors with business owners that we didn't have before.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, it does. And partnerships and even more ability to give back now. I know we're getting close on time, but I get real fired up about this.
I love it. I love it. This is the good stuff.
We had through Veterans Club, there was a homeless veteran. Well, he wasn't homeless. Let me take that back. He was on the verge of becoming homeless. And he had a Section 8 inspection coming up, and his house was a disaster. And so the Section 8 inspector told the city, if it's not cleaned up in 24 hours, he's going to fail the inspection and we're going to kick him out. Him and his wife would both have been homeless. So the city actually called Veterans Club. Said, is there anything you guys can do? Well, Veterans Club first call was, hey, we know a guy. And so they called us and they're like, hey, is there anything you guys can do? Well, we had an opening on the Saturday and we're like, we're going to go over there. We went over there, cleaned this guy's place up. He got to keep his house. He was more than grateful. But for us, it was a huge win for my team. That builds your culture.
Yeah.
It wasn't all over the news. Nobody really knew about it. We were just doing it for the right reasons. And man, I'm telling you, that's as important as being in front of everyone, is building the culture through doing the right stuff. And so anyway, yeah, man, it's been a great opportunity. So that's
huge. Well, Ronnie, you and I could chat for hours, so we'll definitely have to have you back on. And we've got some exciting things, coming down the pipeline. We're working on a couple things together. So appreciate you taking the time on a Saturday here. A couple last questions here. What are a couple books that stand out that have made an impact on your life at any point in your self-development or business or personal life?
Yeah. So right now I'm finishing up The Power of One More by Ed Milet. There's a lot of cliche stuff in that book, but man, there are some really good golden nuggets in that book that I think are awesome. I would say that The Dichotomy of Leadership, it's another Jocko Willink book.
I haven't read that. What was your two biggest takeaways from that?
So I think that there were so many, it's hard for me to really narrow that down. But, as we talk through discipline, a lot of it was a culture. It's a culture kind of building book. Leading by example is really I kind of think the theme throughout that book, and managing personalities. How do you manage, again, that, dichotomy of leadership is obviously the name of the book, but you come into certain dichotomies as a leader, and you have to lead yourself first and then manage personalities second. And I think those are kind of the two big things I took away from that book. So Dichotomy of Leadership. And then Relentless is an incredible book. It's not for everybody, I will say. I think if you're driven and you're trying to get to the next level, you will relate to a lot of the things in the book, and you'll find out some things about yourself, and you'll go, man, I realize I'm not doing some of the things at a level that I could be.
Maybe want to nudge a little bit more to the cleaner side of things, right?
Yeah. Because you'll see okay, I'm a cleaner in this area, but in this area, I'm more of a closer. Now, if you're a cooler, you better get off your ass.
Probably not the book for you if you're a cooler, to be honest.
Yeah, you're not going to like that book. It's going to hurt your feelings.
Relentless is a fantastic book. I got to read that again. Awesome. And then any last thoughts for people, and then wrap up with telling us where people can find you.
I don't really have any. We covered a lot. I mean, and as you said, we could talk forever. I mean, you and I both have tons of stories, and I'm looking forward to talking again in the future. But I'm glad that we get to share this knowledge in the junk removal space. You and I work with some other industries, but junk removal is kind of where our heart is, and so I'm thankful that everybody got to kind of come and see us talk together. They see us commenting together all the time, and they're like, "What the hell are these guys doing? These sketchy marketer guys?" But
yeah, exactly.
But anyway, I'm glad that we got to come and do this together, and everybody got to see it. So you can find me on Facebook at Ronnie Knuckles. My company's name is Spearcrest Digital. You can see us there. Sergeant Junket is the junk removal business. I mean, I'm sure some of you have seen that. So you can come check us out, follow us there. And if you guys have any questions, just let me or Louis know.
I love it. I love it. Well, pleasure as always, Ronnie. Hope everyone got at least one nugget out of this. Drop it in the comments even after we drop off here live. But appreciate you coming, and till next time, guys.